Welcome to another episode of Canny Conversations podcast, and we're here at the offices of Pathway Group. Slightly detour from our normal Canny Conversations podcast because this is a special, and I've got two very special people here at the offices today. One who is a very close friend of mine. We've been associated for a number of years, and it's been a while since he's last come here. So let me introduce him first. Mr. Majid Waris. I'll go to our formal language. Thank you so much for coming today. Much appreciate that. You and I obviously been known each other for many years and worked together. We collaborate together and so forth. So I really appreciate you coming today and joining me. This is a first for ourselves in terms of this type of podcast. Last time you interviewed me, which was a while back for PTG. So thank you so much for coming today. And our special guest, who is a visitor from Scotland, our friend and somebody that we've been following for a while now, particularly on TikTok, very addictive. And I'm going to introduce Ajmal Mushtaq, who's joined us today. So welcome to Birmingham.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We love your stuff on TikTok. This is a slightly different medium. Obviously, we'll be recording long form today, but we'll also be recording for Spotify and so forth for the podcast as well. So really appreciate that. And thank you so much for coming today. Much appreciate the opportunity, sir. Okay. So thank you. So what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about quite a few things here. We're going to be talking about scalable business models. We're going to be talking about the food industry, some of the challenges, some of the growth. We're going to be talking about leadership and management in general, something called accidental manager, what that means, family businesses, some of the strifes and challenges. We'll be talking about SME businesses generally. We'll be talking about scalability. How can a business scale? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? Talk about maybe the global market, some of those opportunities as well. The world is getting a little bit smaller. Talk about tech, talk about a little bit about social media. We'll talk about media as a whole. We may talk a little bit about lifelong learning skills, generally, how you keep relevant. One of my favorite words at this moment in time, because both of you guys are very relevant. And anything else, any or business, A or B, anything else that might come in. So any of those that tickle your fancy to start off with, Majid Saab. I'll have to stop calling you Majid Saab. Majid.
It's refreshing to see people challenging the status quo, because there are a lot of people who, as you know, we've been doing podcasts on things like business coaches and coaches in general, fobbing people off and selling them ideas, the wishy-washy stuff. But when you scratch the surface and look beyond what's obvious, there's very little substance.
Nothing there.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of setting the scene, what's the mood like generally in terms of when you're talking to business people out there and talking to people? Are they sort of gloomy? Are they positive? If you were to generalize, just, start off with that, Ajmal.
I think the general sentiment is politics is now a real detriment to business, but there's nothing we can do about it. So you've just got to roll up your sleeves and get on with it. And I think the business environment is getting tougher and tougher. And certainly running a business is getting more and more challenging. Taxes increasing all the time. And it's incremental. It's incremental increases, tiny increases. And you think, when you look at it in isolation, it's not a big deal. But if you add them up and keep adding them up year after year after year, I think soon we'll be at breaking point. Something's got to give.
So give us some positivity, give some hope in terms of, there's breaking point, there's challenges, but we're, people who hopefully are adaptable generally, the business people are generally adaptable. They can cope and they're resilient, one of our favorite words back from COVID days. So talk to us a little bit about how you become a bit more adaptable.
Well, I think this is, having said that, the negative side of the increase in taxes, but there's a flip side, and that is social media. You could explode on social media almost overnight. You've got access to the best data in the history of mankind if you want to target specific people. So if you're even reasonably savvy with social media, with short-form content, with meta ads, you can get your brand in front of an audience easier than ever before.
Okay.
It also depends on the nature of the business as well, doesn't it? I mean, when you're in a business related to selling of products, is going to be very much different to a business selling services. And then when you're in a business of selling services, the difference between your traditional methods of selling and marketing, and then using IT, AI, stuff like producing software, and because there's something I'm involved in at the moment. I can see what is expanding for me personally. The service-based industry is going to be very different to the product-based industry when you've got tangible products, although there's going to be some overlapping. But when you're solely service-based, it's going to be a little bit different.
Is it?
I think it is.
Okay, let me ask you. In your service-based industry, do you pay tax?
Of course, the core elements are going to be the same. I'm referring to the opportunities of getting, for example, if you're in a product-based industry and that product-based company is located in a specific place. Let's just take, for example, a new restaurant that's opened. Then that's going to be limited in its footfall and in the vicinity.
Naturally.
A service-based industry from the same city or a town may be able to attract clients globally. So that's the kind of thing I was referring to.
But fundamentally,
the core elements,
fundamentally underneath the tip of the iceberg, the sales, the marketing, the people management, the HR, the branding, the PR, the sales, the customer service, the VAT, the tax, the account. 99% of the fundamental business blocks of every business is exactly the same.
I won't disagree with that.
Okay, so let's pick up a little bit on that, and let's sort of unpack some aspects of it. So we're talking about social media and the leverage of social media, and you are the face of your brand, Ajmal. Yeah. So you've got a brand there, and it's sort of it's really scaled up because of who you are as an individual, your personality, and you're the face of that brand. Not everybody wants to be the face of their personal brand. Not everybody's got the capability of that. So there's an element of really getting out of your comfort zone. There's an element of the skills that you may have. So talk to us a little bit about how has it worked for you first.
If you run a business and you are not the face of the brand, you are leaving money on the table. The only reason my current business is flying at the moment is because I was the face of my previous brand. I was the face of the brand. I was writing articles, doing videos, on social media. And over a period of time, the byproduct of that is people trust you. They know you in detail, and they're much more likely to do business with you. So naturally, when I sold that business and now moving on to my new venture, which is Boss Pizza, people already know my track record as a result of me being the face of the brand. Had I not been the face of the brand, I think it would have been much, much more difficult to sell my current product.
Okay, just so delve a little bit into that. So you've got the brand in terms of the organization, but then you've got your personal brand.
Yep.
So how would you identify what your personal brand is, Ajmal? What's that known for?
It's very easy. My rule in sales is, my number one rule in sales is don't sell anything. So if you go onto my TikTok, I'm not selling anything. All I'm doing is building goodwill. I'm giving really good value content, and I'm not expecting anything in return. The byproduct of that is people then want to do business with me. So I've got a link in my bio on TikTok. If you want to buy a Boss Pizza franchise, it's www.bosspizzafranchise.co.uk. That's the only place where you can actually contact me. So we're not out there selling. We're actually just out there giving really good value. And naturally, that is attracting people to our brand. And that's how we're growing the business.
And do you think that's something that everybody can do?
Well, I'm doing it. I can't see any reason why not. Of course you can.
Okay. So if somebody is a little bit reluctant, they may think that, this is not for them. They may struggle in terms of communication. That's a big thing as well in terms of that.
You've got video. If you're struggling with video, do audio. If you're struggling with audio, do written. There's so many different avenues how you can reach your consumers.
And does it have to be the leader of the organization, the person who is the CEO or the founder?
Not necessarily, but a good, solid representative. The only risk of using someone else is when they leave your business. If they leave your business, all of that goodwill is gone with that person.
Okay. So, Majid, in terms of from your perspective, you work with a number of people where their brands are very strong. Yeah, but not many people know who the actual owners are. Yeah, how do you think about that in terms of I'm not going to name any names, but if you want to pick up anybody that you work with or you can think of, I can think of a few where the actual brand is very strong. And as soon as you think about the brand, you know exactly what the shop looks like, you know what that brand is, but you don't know who the owners are, you don't know who the founder is, and so forth. So if you give me the sort of the thinking there in terms of, you know, how does that work?
I think you'll have to ask them. Actually,
Does that work? Can that work? Like a little bit of a faceless
it can
brand.
work. I think just to pick off from something that Ajmal said, he's right. I agree with him as well. That if you are the brand and your face is out there, you know, you're putting more into the pot. You're getting more of your associates, your recognizable people, people who recognize you for that trust. But the caveat there is if you've not been so good in the past and you're the face, then there's the downside, right?
Track record,
For which reason there might be a good idea to use a substitute.
Yeah.
When it comes to some of these bigger brands that, you know, I think who you're referring to, and people haven't really known who the owners are in the background, they have slowly come on to that way of thinking also now, where they are making themselves known. I think they've recognized it. I think those brands who I work with have been, you know, like your students, you go out with your mates and you start one store of something, and then it ends up becoming multiplied into 2 or 3 stores, and you start becoming a franchise, and then you've got, you know, 60, 70 stores of the same brand. You've been focusing on the brand, the product, and the feeling of that product and the brand. You've not necessarily picked up on your personal brand. But when you get to a stage where you have to start making yourself known among certain circles, in front of certain platforms, or owners of platforms or mediums, then you have no choice but to represent your brand. Because if you do allow somebody else to be representing your brand, you're doing a disservice to the brand and the service that you invested to creating that brand and excelling in that brand.
There's also a risk of being the face of the brand. So let's talk about that as well. If you want to start a business with the aim of selling it in 3, 4, 5 years, and you are the face of the brand, you then tie yourself to the brand, and it becomes much more difficult to dispose of. So that is the downside of being the face of the brand as well.
Okay. So in terms of the market, so you generally operate, which is the fast food market. Obviously, you've got your new franchise model and so forth. And Majid, you work quite heavily with, or quite closely with, organizations who are in that arena. So just set the scene in terms of this particular market, because there's a viewpoint that it's fairly saturated in terms of there's a lot of new names coming in. The existing names out there, they're sort of dominating the market as well. So just, you know, in terms of for somebody that's looking in, just give us an overview first, if you can, Majid, and then we'll come to Ajmal.
Well, from my perspective, I don't see food businesses failing if they are providing a good service and they're being uniquely them. Look, everyone's got to eat. We eat multiple times a day, not just the once in a day. And then you've got the same food establishments who are going out there imitating other food establishments, which sometimes they can leverage off and sometimes they don't, because they haven't figured out the processes behind the business they're trying to imitate. And they'll fail because of their own failures rather than because of the need to provide food. So as a product, if you think about the need for food, look, when you're selling any product, you look at what problem are you solving, right? So when we look at the problem food solves is hunger. Everybody gets hungry in the day, multiple number of times a day. But if you're providing a solution which is fitting the customer and their routine or their diet or their tastes, you know, there's every chance that you can make it a success from what I've observed. And I could be wrong. From the inside, it could be completely different. But the likes of, look, we live in the UK. It's a lot of cold weather in the UK, but why are dessert parlors becoming so populated? And you know, cities are becoming populated with dessert parlors and dessert businesses. It doesn't, logically you think to yourself, well, if you live in a cold country, serve hot food, right? Generally, it might not be technically correct, but in the cold weather, people tend to eat hot food, right? But a lot more people are going out to eat desserts. And why? It's not just a product. It's also the experience. One of the things I said to one of my clients is, you're not just selling an ice cream. You're selling the experience of that particular ice cream in your particular restaurant. any given time. So, I think there's a lot of variables. Obviously, Ajmal will be able to give you more of a...
Ajmal, your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
There is no industry in the world which is not saturated. You take any sector in the world, there is so much competition in any sector. So I think for the food sector, I can talk about that. You just need to be better than the competition. And one of the things I look at when we're moving into a new area, if there is plenty of competition, that is a major plus point, because that tells us that there is a healthy market there. And all you need to do is move into that market and just be better than the competition, and you'll win the day.
Okay. How do you differentiate? How do you be better? So let's talk a little bit about how do you differentiate in that marketplace. If there's a lot of choice already there, there's many providers already there, whether it's dessert parlors or pizza places or whatever. How do you come into a market which you've got already competition out there and set up as a newbie, as a startup?
Majid, you want to take that or shall I take it?
Well, I can give you from my observation, better, as Ajmal said, doesn't necessarily mean the quality's going to be better. It just has to be different sometimes.
Yeah, how do you differentiate is what I'm trying to...
Just being different.
Being different.
Staying in your own lane. If you're setting out to, let's just say, fill a gap, or you feel there's a gap, let's just say the market's saturated with kebab shops as an example, but no one's maybe serving a certain type of kebab you like and you've made before or you've tasted before somewhere, and you think it's going to be, something different. That could be one factor. It could be something just different, not necessarily better, but different. You might get... Do you remember the days when you get doner kebabs and naan breads? That's it. Doner wasn't used in pizzas. Doner wasn't used in also different cuisines we get nowadays. Not that I eat doner, but from my observations, doner is being used in so many different ways, right? And pizzas. You're in the pizza business. You understand them better than we would. It's look at the topping varieties that you can get, right? So I think in any market, doesn't matter how saturated it is, if you can provide a service, again going back to the principle of providing a solution in some way, in some industries, it might not just be the quality of one product, but a variation of the same product. But what it will always come down to is the experience, in my opinion. Because if you're the shop owner and you've given such a great experience, there was a theological, historical kind of a narration in which there was a guy who went to one store and he was going to buy some condiments, and they were getting a fraction of a price cheaper from another store. Okay, when the guy went to the other store who was selling it for a bit more expensive, a bit more pricier, that person wasn't only just providing a service with a bit more cost added onto it, they're providing them with a smile. They're asking them about the family. They're asking about their friends. They're asking about what they got up to the weekend. It's that connection that they're built with that customer, for which reason that customer became loyal to that particular store. Which is why I keep going back to, it's not just the product that you're handing over, it's the whole service surrounding it. So I think from my experience and from my observations, that's what I would put it down to.
Yep. The way you differentiate yourself, and I've done this before, I built the biggest takeaway operation in Britain, and there wasn't one single thing that was unique about us, and I speak a lot about this. Unique selling point is bullshit. Don't waste any time on that. All we did is list 100 things that we do and 100 things that the competition do. And what we did is we just did every single one of those points better than the competition. So I'll give you an example. If they answered the phone in 5-6 rings, we would answer the phone in 3 rings. If they delivered food in 1 hour, we would deliver it in half an hour. If they had 10 staff on, we would have 15 staff on. If they waved goodbye, we would have a doorman at the door to sort of wave goodbye, open the door and see them out. So if we took every single tiny component of the business and just made it so much better than the competition, to the point where it's a takeaway, right? Okay, it turned out to be a mega takeaway operation. We would train the staff for 5 weeks before they were allowed to answer a phone call. You will never have that level of standard anywhere else. in the country. So it was down to that level. And just to give you an example on that, we would answer the phone professionally trained operators. We would answer the phone, take the order, repeat the order back, give them the price, give them the delivery time, take the payment within 1 minute. All of that would be done in 1 minute. And when you compare that standard of service to the competition, it was night and day difference.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of diversion of thought here. So what we're saying here is, correct me otherwise. So USP is not needed. Just be better.
Yeah.
Just be better, be stronger,
and
just give more value as opposed to different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Majid?
Yeah, I knew you were going to pick me up on this one because I train in sales and stuff, and we talk about this. If you remember, though, the last time we did the sales masterclass together, I also reiterated the same thing. USPs, for me, from a sales perspective, only apply to the product itself, not the service.
Okay.
So if you've got, let's just say, one model of a phone, there might be a USP in that phone, that particular model of the phone, which differentiates it from a different model of the phone or the older iteration of that phone.
Okay.
In service, you don't rely on USP. You rely on pain points and providing.
Pain points.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we buying that, Ajmal?
Yeah, it does make sense. But I think at the product level, say, for example, a phone, a car, this glass, like how much better can a new competitor make that glass? They might make it 10% stronger, but does that really matter to the end consumer?
That's the goal.
And I speak about this a lot, right? Let's take, for example, we've all been on holiday, we've all been in an aeroplane. We have never booked a holiday based on the type of aeroplane that's going to take us there. Yet, I bet you Boeing and Airbus have probably spent millions of pounds working in their USP and differentiating themselves from the brand. But us, as the end consumer, have we ever cared whether we're flying in an Airbus or a Boeing?
Okay. Ajmal, somebody's got to try your product for you, for them to know that you're better.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you get them to firstly, get attracted to your offer if you're not different?
Well, I think our mantra is very simple. We're going after the industry leader. We're bigger, better, fresher than Domino's. That's mathematical. We are 40% bigger. We are 50% cheaper, and our dough is made fresh in store every single day. Bigger, better, fresher than Domino's. They can challenge us all day long. They can't touch us at all. It's mathematical.
Okay. So you're talking about a formula-driven, scalable process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In a market that's already dominated by
Domino's.
A big player.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't care if they're the market leader or not. All we're doing is the way you win in business is we're not going to put on our boxing gloves and arrive at Domino's HQ and start boxing them. We're going to take the battle to the communities. We're going to win in the hearts and minds of the consumer. Once we just need them to eat the pizza once, and they're going to think, bloody hell, this is bigger, and it's a lot cheaper. That's where we're going to win, at that level.
Okay. How do you attract that individual first? So yes, I get it in terms of your pitch, bigger, better, stronger.
Yep.
But how do they try Boss Pizza first?
Marketing.
There
is no point doing
But what are you, Ajmal, marketing in terms of what is the offer?
The brand.
The brand.
We spend, when we're moving into a new area, we'll spend 80% of the marketing budget on building the brand and 20% in the offer. Within 1 year, that 80% will drop down to 50% branding and 50% offer.
Okay. And this is a franchise model that specifically that you've got.
Yep.
Yeah.
And is based on the biggest takeaway operation that I built and sold. So I've just taken the learnings from that, and it's now a lot easier because we've already done this before. It's a copy and paste job from the previous successes, of the previous business.
Okay. And how's that going for you at the moment?
Yeah, very well. Very well.
Okay.
We've got plans to open up a branch in every single city by this time next year. You'll see Boss Pizza all over the UK.
Okay. So that's obviously a franchise model.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about franchising because, again, you're both associated with franchise and franchises. You work closely with national franchise, global franchise as well. Why would firstly somebody who's a successful business owner want to sort of franchise their name and model across? Why would they not want to do it themselves? In your view?
So the work that I do is mainly related to compliance.
Yeah.
But if I'm to think about if I had a company like the companies that I work with,
Yeah.
why would I want, considering what I've seen, what they've done,
Yeah.
to franchise it out to
Yeah.
other people? I think it goes again down to branding, but you can expand quicker by using other people's capital rather than yours.
Yeah.
There's different forms of risk elements in there in terms of branding. If you get the wrong type of franchisee, it can, wreck your brand. But if you get the good types of franchisees, it could help expand your brand even further.
Yeah.
So from what I can gather, if a company is franchising out, then the branding gets it can have a compound effect. You are completely turning the tide in your expansion plans. You can get other people's capital. If you're already running a successful model in terms of the branch itself and it's shown and proven to be profitable, then people who already may have some capital but not the confidence to start their own brand, they would rely on the confidence that this existing brand is already successful, and they piggyback off it so they can also make a return on their investment. But it requires a certain type of person to become a franchisee as well. From the company's perspective, because I work with both. I work with the franchisees to do the work on site, but then I also meet the company owners, and you get to get a feel of what they're looking for in a franchisee. And it's a very interesting way of trying to figure out what this marriage is going to look like, because from the company's perspective, and Ajmal will probably give you deeper insights on this, you're looking to expand, you're looking to grow, you're looking for the brand to be reached everywhere so people can experience what your product is like, appreciate it, maybe want to have their own. But from the franchisee's perspective, you need to understand what the motivation is. What's the motivation for wanting to start a business, first of all? But then what's the motivation to choose a franchise rather than starting your own? And what the intentions behind those are. So there are so many variables out there, but in a nutshell, I would say from the company's perspective, it's a great way of expanding. It's a great way of being able to grow using other people's capital, but for them also benefiting out of what you've built as a brand. From the franchisee's perspective, you already got an existing brand. It's successful. You got most of the operational side of things all sorted for you. You don't have to worry about suppliers. You don't have to worry about where you're going to get certain ingredients from. It's a proven formula. You get what's given to you, but then you can't divert too much either in a franchise model. So those might be the challenges for the franchisee.
So Ajmal, why have you become a franchisor?
If you franchise your business, it is much easier to grow the business. As Majid said, you don't need as much capital. So with less capital, less of your own capital, you can actually create a national brand. That's one thing. That's the upside. The downside is the quality of the franchisee can make or break your brand. And that's probably one of the biggest risks in franchising. And then from a franchisee's point of view, they're buying into a proven system that's been tried and tested, and the risk for them is a lot lower.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about business owner running their own enterprise and the franchise model. So, you must have had a bit of a thought process in terms of this is the route you want to go down.
Yep.
And yes, you spoke about capital, you spoke about also the risks and the challenges. But if somebody was reluctant initially to go down that route of franchising, and they've got a successful maybe 2-branch, 3-branch business, what advice would you give to that business owner who, not everybody automatically starts thinking about franchise or becoming a franchisee. Any thoughts to those business owners out there?